Telling the difference between the voice of your intuition and that constant mind chatter can be quite confusing. In the last video, which I'll link to up here, I promised to show you some tips on how to recognize the voice of your intuition and examples of how it has helped me and others stay safe. So in this video, I'm going to give you lots of practical tips that you can use. And keep watching right to the end as I take you through a simple exercise that will help you to use your intuition to make a decision. Hello, I'm Aannsha. I'm an artist, a meditation teacher, an intuitive tarot reader, and a lifelong explorer of consciousness. More than 30 years ago, I wrote down 14 soul transmissions that were channeled through me during a period of deep meditation. Over the years, I've come to see them not as predictions, although some of them might be, or doctrines, but as loving guidance that has come from a deeper place within, a quiet inner connection that we all carry. Some of you may have already seen an earlier version of this video on my other channel. Have you ever struggled to tell the difference between your intuition and the endless mind chatter in your head? You want to make the best choice, but you seriously don't know which is the voice of your higher self, or what I call the little inner voice. In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can start to identify your intuition's voice clearly so that you can start trusting it and making better decisions in your life. I'll also share my real life examples of when I ignored my inner voice and regretted it, and when I listened to it and it really made a difference to the survival of my husband and myself when we lived on a boat. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to recognize and trust the voice of your intuition. Before you can identify your intuition, you need to know exactly what it is. And no, it's not just a random thought or wishful thinking. Your intuition doesn't shout, it whispers. It's different from your everyday voice, which is often filled with worries, thoughts about yesterday, plans for tomorrow, arguments, or even other people's voices that you've sort of taken on. Unlike fear and anger, which can come across as loud, urgent, insistent, angry type thoughts, your intuition gently whispers suggestions. It may even come in the form of a question like, what if you did such and such? I used to ignore my intuition when I was younger, and I can remember once when my son was a tiny toddler and I was leaving the house to take some trash out to the rubbish bin, or what you call a dumpster in America, and I had my son with me and I had the trash, and my little inner voice said to me as I was leaving, "What happens if the door shuts behind you?" And I went, "Oh, it never shuts behind me, it never locks, it's not a problem." And I went out. 5 minutes later, bang, there I was with trash in one hand, son under the other arm. I had no shoes on. I had to go to the neighbours to make a phone call, to call my husband, who worked 3/4 of an hour away, to come and let me back in the house. So not listening to my intuition that time, I'd heard the voice, I'd argued with it, and I paid the price, and so had my husband. Intuition generally doesn't arrive in a big dramatic way. Sometimes it comes as the simplest little question, so ordinary that it can be easy to just dismiss it. Actually, I think my little inner voice knows how stubborn I am, and I don't like being told what to do. So when it brings advice to me, it very often poses it as a quiet little question. But often that question is the doorway, either to me stopping and getting quiet and still and listening more to my little inner voice, or to looking at my situation and going, okay, what do I want to do from here? Recognizing your intuition is the first step towards trusting it. And the more you tune in, the more easily you'll be able to recognize it. If you've already got a fairly clear inner voice like me, maybe if you're strong-willed, you need to learn to argue less with it and listen more to it. So how do you know if it's your intuition talking or if it's just your mind running around in circles? Mental noise is what can go on in your head when you're trying to make a decision, and your mind starts throwing out all sorts of ideas and scenarios like, what if I make the wrong choice? Maybe I should wait and think about it more. I always overthink everything. Know that one? Meanwhile, your intuition is sitting quietly in the background, smiling lovingly at you, offering you calm and simple feeling or knowing as to what to do without any pressure, just a soft nudge toward the best choice. Another example from my life, from when my husband and I lived on a boat, my intuition really came through and helped us out in what could have turned into a situation that was really scary. I was sitting on the deck having a cup of tea before we set sail, just looking out at the sea. Mind was not focusing on anything at all, and my little inner voice said,
"How good are you at remembering a rolling hitch?" I had a really strong feeling to get our RYA handbook out and remind myself how to tie a rolling hitch.
Later that day we were sailing and we had the head sail full out, and we noticed by looking at the waves that the wind ahead of us was picking up quite seriously. So we knew that we needed to reef the sail or make it smaller.
Of course, when Baz said to me, the furling line's not coming through the jammer, I went, "Oh, it's okay, let's get another line. I can do a rolling hitch, we'll at least be able to support it round another winch while we work out what to do." So we did that. We also managed to use black electrical tape and make it slim enough to be able to pull it through the jammer.
If I hadn't listened to my intuition earlier, that could have been a really bad situation, because with the sail out as far as it was and jammed and the wind coming, we could have actually suffered a knockdown, which would have been really scary. So thankfully, my intuition came through that day, and thankfully I actually listened to and acted on it. And that's one of the things about intuition. It may not always arrive with a really big ta-da. Sometimes it simply prepares us quietly for what we may not yet know is coming. We had a couple of instances when we were newly living on the boat and I wasn't yet tuned into listening to my intuition. I was still sort of nervous about the whole responsibility of sailing and, carrying all of our belongings with us. And there were a couple of times where I started to get really, really anxious. Like, when you're really worried about something and you just can't stop this sort of gnawing sense of anxiety that's in the pit of your stomach. Well, that was how I felt my intuition a couple of times. But at the time, I didn't know that it was that. I just thought that I was unnecessarily worrying because this was a whole new experience for me, and I was a bit nervous about it anyway. So both of those times, after the period of anxiety, something major happened to the boat. The first time I'd had a sort of mental image that had kept replaying in my head, and when the incident happened on the boat, that was exactly the image that I'd had. And so when I look back at that, I could piece together the image and the sense of anxiety and go, oh, okay, that was what it was. And the other time when we nearly lost the boat, actually. About an hour ago, I just got into bed. I was just about to read and I heard this, it's a sickening sound.
It's just a thud. And I thought someone had hit us because we were quite happily tied up to a mooring ball. Just went again. I realised what was going on. It must have hit 4 or 5 times.
I'd had a sense of anxiety for a couple of days and it just wouldn't go away. And again, I just thought that I was nervous because we were going somewhere new, didn't know how we were going to anchor, what have you. Again, looking back on it, I realise now that that was my natural self that was getting a heads up, if you like, that I needed to be aware that something was going to happen. These were my learning curves. So after both of those, my husband and I debriefed, and he said to me, look, if you ever get any feelings like that again, tell me and I will put it into my, the captain's mind that has to juggle 100 different decisions every day. Because we realised that actually those intuitive flashes were hugely important to us at the time. In the case of feeling that really strong anxiety in the pit of my stomach, plus getting a picture of something that might happen to the boat, those two things together were a very clear picture that I was receiving from my intuition, but also from my gut instincts. And I think that's important to be able to discern as well. Intuition is quiet, gentle and wise, like the images that I was receiving. Gut instincts can give you a strong sense of concern or worry, or make you physically want to move out of a situation without necessarily knowing what it is. And further on in this video, I will tell you an example of how my gut instincts actually kept me safe. So this happens a lot, doesn't it, to me, keeping me safe. But this is the wonderful thing about gut instincts and our intuition. The more we see them as valid pieces of information, the more we are able to act in ways that are the best for us and for other people. Learning the difference between the chaos of the mind and the chaotic, anxious thoughts versus the quiet little inner voice can literally be life-saving. Hopefully that sort of long-winded explanation of how I learned to recognize intuition in hindsight will help you to discern more easily when you get these feelings or senses or body sensations. The more you use your intuition, the stronger it gets. And there are actually simple ways to tune into it. Practicing meditation, self-awareness, and journaling are all really good practices. I found that meditation really helps me. In fact, I went on to teach meditation, and I do have some on Insight Timer app and some on this channel as well if you're interested. Another great way is to write down your intuitive nudges in a journal and write down the outcomes when you follow them and the outcomes when you don't. And then you can compare, and over time you'll actually learn to discern much better what the voice of your intuition or your little inner voice sounds like. You know, for some it might be more of a voice in your head, or it could come across as one of your thoughts. It may come more as a sense of knowing, or it might come as a flash, like a picture. You might get a pull in your gut in a certain direction. They're all ways that your higher self can communicate with you. And a lot of it depends on how you process the world personally. When I was about 19, I was in a club with my big sister, and all night I sort of had the thought, I want to go home now. But I had no logical reason to say, let's go. Everybody seemed to be enjoying themselves, so I didn't say anything. After a while, I got a really urgent feeling in my stomach. It was a sense that I really need to leave now. So I said to my sister, I want to go home. We went into the ladies' toilets and she said, what's happened? Has somebody said something to you? And I went, no. And she went, well, somebody copped a feel? And I went, no, I just really want to go home. So after a few more minutes of really puzzled interrogation, she kind of like looked a bit concerned because I was acting weird, but she walked me home. And it wasn't actually far from where she lived. So she decided that she would walk back because we'd left a girlfriend back at the club. And in the time that she'd walked me back to her place and then gone back to the club, there'd been a really big bar fight and a few people had been seriously injured. So I have to say, I'm really glad that I paid attention to my gut instincts that night, as I realised that my intuition was right more often than it was wrong, or that I was paying attention to the right voice more often than I was paying attention to the wrong voice. I really started to trust it more. Another thing that you can do is start asking yourself open-ended questions like, how do I feel about this option now? Or what should I consider right now? And then remain open to the answer. It might come as a thought, a feeling, or a body sensation. Just start to trust the information that you're getting. Do this often, and the more you engage with it, the stronger your connection with the little inner voice will become. And the stronger it becomes, the more you'll trust it. Building a relationship with your little inner voice or your intuition does take practice, and it can take time, and you may not always get it right. But once you start, you'll wonder how you ever made decisions without it. Did you know that your intuition often speaks through your dreams? Dreams can be a powerful way for your subconscious and your intuition to send you messages when your logical mind or the mind of the ego is quiet and out of the way. An example of this is I had a dream about an old flame, and we hadn't been in touch for 12 or so years. In fact, he lived on the other side of the world. But I had this dream and it was really strong and it was totally out of the blue. But from the dream, I had real cause to be concerned about him. So I rang his mum in the UK and I got his phone number and I rang him up. That took a bit of courage, I have to say. Not long after that, I was visiting my mum on the other side of the world and he wasn't too far away. So I actually went to visit him as well. And you know what? That man became my husband. My intuition was not only protecting me, it was guiding me toward love, destiny, and a life that I never could have planned if I had just used my logical mind alone. So pay attention to your dreams, because sometimes they may hold more guidance than you realize. Actually, starting a dream journal isn't a bad idea. Your intuition's voice guides you in the right direction. One of the reasons I know this is because that's how I've experienced it, but also the voice of your spirit will never interfere with your free will. The more I trusted my intuition, the more I saw how it worked for me, in my favour, and everyone else actually. It's helped me avoid bad situations, and it's helped me find incredible opportunities, and it's also helped me to reconnect with the love of my life. And once you start listening more closely to your little inner voice, it will become a really valuable guide. Your intuition is your built-in compass, and when you follow it, life just works better. Now that you know how to identify and trust your intuition, it's time to start practicing. Okay, so here's a little exercise. Do you have a yes/no question that you want answered, or a direction that you want to go in, sort of this way or that way? If so, this little exercise is for you. Take a little time right now and focus on the question. And then if it feels right, close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths and just sigh out any tension that you may have. Okay, so hold your question in mind and ask your inner being, the one that's connected to you and to all that is, to show you in your mind the two options that you're deciding between. You don't have to picture them in full Technicolor 3D visions. Just ask your inner self to show you symbolically what they look like energetically. Picture each one as a shape and a colour. Maybe each one has a sound tone, or a smell, or a feeling about it. Now look at the two and notice the difference between them. Which one do you feel less attracted to, and which one do you feel drawn to? Or which colour or shape do you prefer? You don't have to logically understand this, just trust your deep inner sensing, because your intuition knows you and it knows the decisions, and it's connected with your highest self and your best outcomes, and it can guide you as to which is a better choice for you right now. So you don't have to trust your head, you can trust your gut, which one feels right. And once you are clear about which one feels right for you, open your eyes. I'd love to hear your experience in the comments below. Did you get a sense of different shapes or colours, or a different feeling between the two? How did this exercise make you feel? Was it something that you feel is going to be useful to you? I'd love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below. And if you'd like to journey along with these soul transmissions, remember to like the video and do click subscribe. So after that exercise, and as we move into the next soul transmissions, I invite you to continue listening in a slightly different way. Not just trying to understand with your logical mind, but also listening to your heart and also sensing with your body, because your heart opens the doorway to what I like to call your heart mind, your little inner voice, and your body is the seat of your gut instincts, and both of those are really great ways to help you move through life. These transmissions didn't come through as teachings in the traditional sense. I wrote them down as what I thought beautiful messages, but actually looking at them more deeply, they are absolutely filled with encoded information, not only about how to live our life to find more fulfillment and joy in these really changing times, but also how to find a sense of peace and inner strength, and also direction as we move from one phase of evolution, as I like to see it, into another one. In the next video, we'll move on to expression of life and how you and all of us have something unique to share with the world. My name's Aannsha. Thank you for being with me on Soul Return, and I will see you in the next transmission.